Sarah had always believed that love meant standing together through every season, no matter how hard the rain fell. She and David had been married for 8 years, and in the beginning, it felt like they were building something real. He was the ambitious marketing director at Apex Dynamics, a sleek tech firm that promised the world. She was the one who kept their home warm, who worked long hours at a local coffee chain called Bean and Grind, pouring lattes and wiping counters for minimum wage. David used to tease her about it gently in the early days. "My little barista," he'd say with a smile. But somewhere along the way, the teasing turned sharp. The smiles disappeared. And what was left was pure contempt. Every evening when she came home smelling of espresso and cleaning spray, he'd be sitting at the kitchen island in his crisp button-down, scrolling through his phone. "How many coffees did you serve today, Sarah? Did you get a good tip from the soccer moms?" His voice carried that edge now. The one that made her stomach tighten. She'd laugh it off at first, telling herself he was just stressed from work. But the mockery grew like mold in the dark. One night, after a particularly brutal 12-hour shift, she walked through the door exhausted, her feet aching. David didn't even look up. "You know, while you were out there making minimum wage, I closed a 6-figure deal today." 6 figures, Sarah. Maybe one day you'll understand what that feels like. He finally glanced at her, his eyes scanning her stained apron with something close to disgust. Or maybe not. She stood there in the doorway, the weight of his words pressing down on her chest. She wanted to tell him how much she actually enjoyed her job, the regulars who asked about her day, the college kids who made her laugh, the small sense of independence it gave her. But she stayed quiet. She had always been the peacekeeper. The financial strain didn't help. David controlled most of the money, calling it efficient. Her paycheck was treated like pocket change. "It's cute that you contribute," he'd say. "But let's be honest, it barely covers groceries." He started coming home later, dressing sharper, smelling like expensive cologne that wasn't for her. Sarah felt herself shrinking, becoming smaller in her own life. Friends noticed. Her best friend Mia pulled her aside one afternoon after a shift. "He talks to you like you're beneath him, Sarah. You deserve better than this." But Sarah defended him. "He's under a lot of pressure at Apex. The company's going through restructuring. Once things settle, he'll go back to the man I married." She wanted to believe that so badly. Then came the night that cracked everything open. They were at David's company gala, an event she dreaded every year. She wore a simple black dress she'd bought on sale, while the other wives dripped in designer labels. David introduced her to his colleagues with that same condescending tone. "This is my wife, Sarah. She's in hospitality." The way he said it made it sound like she cleaned toilets for a living. One of his coworkers, a slick executive named Richard, chuckled. "Minimum wage warrior, huh? That's adorable." Sarah smiled through the humiliation, but inside she was dying. Later that night in the car, David exploded. "Do you have any idea how embarrassing you are? You stand there like you don't even belong. Maybe if you actually tried to do something with your life instead of wasting it at that stupid coffee shop." She cried silently the whole ride home. That was the moment something inside her shifted. Not broke, but shifted. She started noticing things she'd ignored before: the late nights, the secret phone calls, the way he looked at his attractive young assistant at the gala. 3 weeks later, everything changed in the most unexpected way. Sarah was at Bean and Grind on a slow Tuesday morning when her phone buzzed. It was an unknown number. She almost ignored it, but something made her answer. The voice on the other end was professional, crisp. "Mrs. Sarah Thompson? This is Elena Vargas from Horizon Legal Group. We've been trying to reach you regarding your late uncle's estate." Sarah froze, holding a stack of cups. Her uncle Richard, her mother's brother, had passed away 6 months earlier. They'd never been particularly close, and she'd assumed his modest assets had gone elsewhere. But what the lawyer said next made the floor feel like it was tilting. "Your uncle left you controlling shares in Apex Dynamics. He was one of the original silent investors. The shares have been in a trust, but they've now transferred to you. You are now the largest individual shareholder in your husband's company." Sarah nearly dropped the phone. "I'm sorry, what?" the lawyer explained it calmly. Her uncle had been a quiet force behind the company's early funding. No one at Apex, not even David, knew about her connection. The shares had been structured in a way that only activated upon his death. And now, with recent restructuring and a major board vote coming up, Sarah's name was about to appear publicly in the company filings. She went home that night in a daze. David was already there, celebrating with a glass of whiskey. "We just landed a massive government contract," he boasted. "Things are finally turning around for Apex. Maybe now you can finally quit that dead-end job." Sarah looked at him, really looked at him. And for the first time in years, she didn't feel small. She felt something else, something powerful, and quiet, and dangerous. She didn't tell him. Not yet. The next few weeks were a whirlwind of secret meetings, legal documents, and quiet revelations. Sarah learned that Apex had been struggling more than David let on. Poor decisions, inflated egos, and risky investments had left the company vulnerable. Her uncle had seen it coming and had structured her inheritance as a safety net and a weapon. Then came the day of the emergency board meeting. David was nervous, pacing the house that morning in his best suit. "This is huge, Sarah. The board is voting on new leadership structure. If I play my cards right, I could be up for VP." She nodded, saying nothing. That afternoon, while David sat in the sleek glass conference room at Apex, the CEO stood up to address the room. The projector flickered to life with the new ownership disclosures required by law. And there it was, in bold black letters on the massive screen for everyone to see. Majority shareholder, Sarah E. Thompson. A ripple of confusion spread through the executives. David's face went pale. He stared at the screen like it was a personal betrayal from the universe itself. Sarah Thompson. His wife. The woman he had mocked for years. The minimum wage barista. Murmurs turned into shocked whispers. "Who the hell is Sarah Thompson?" someone asked. David's voice cracked as he stood up. That's my wife." The room fell into stunned silence. Sarah wasn't there to witness his humiliation in person, but she heard about it later. She had chosen to stay home that day, sitting at their kitchen table with a fresh cup of coffee she'd made herself. When David burst through the front door that evening, his tie loosened, his face flushed with rage and confusion, she was ready. "What the hell is going on, Sarah?" he demanded, slamming his briefcase down. Your name was all over the board presentation today. They're saying you own the largest stake in Apex. How is that even possible?" She took a slow sip of her coffee, meeting his eyes steadily. For the first time in their marriage, she didn't look away. "My uncle," she said calmly. "He believed in quiet investments. Turns out he believed in me too." David laughed, but it was a hollow, broken sound. "This is ridiculous. You don't know anything about running a company. You make coffee for a living." "And you," she replied, her voice steady but laced with years of buried pain, "spent those years tearing me down for it. Every day, every single day you made me feel worthless. While I was building a life with dignity, you were busy looking down on me." The truth spilled out, then the late nights. The way he'd made her question her own worth. The disrespect that had slowly poisoned their marriage. David tried to backpedal, tried to charm her the way he used to. "Baby, we can figure this out together. This is our future now. We're a team." But Sarah had already made her decision. In the weeks that followed, the company went through massive changes. Sarah, with the help of trusted advisors, pushed for a new direction, one focused on integrity and real leadership. David was quietly let go, not fired dramatically in front of everyone, but removed from his position with a severance package that felt like mercy she wasn't sure he deserved. She kept her job at Bean and Grind for a while longer, not because she had to, but because she wanted to. Those people had been kind to her when her own husband hadn't. They had seen her value long before the rest of the world did. David tried calling. He showed up at the house with flowers and apologies that felt too convenient, but the damage was done. The man who once mocked her minimum wage job now found himself on the outside, watching as his wife's name became synonymous with the company he used to rule. Sarah eventually sold a portion of her shares and used the rest to create something meaningful, a foundation that helped women in low-paying jobs get the education and opportunities they deserved. She started smiling more, laughing easier. The weight she had carried for years finally lifted. Sometimes late at night, she would think about the woman she used to be, the one who accepted disrespect as love. And she would whisper a quiet thank you to her uncle, and to every difficult day at the coffee shop that taught her resilience. Because in the end, the person David mocked the most became the one who changed everything. Her name didn't just appear on his company, it redefined it. And in doing so, it finally set her free.